How to earn money on MFL? That's the question I will answer in today's video, because many of you guys have asked me, is this a good game to earn money, or do you think this is just a game for the purpose of having a lot of fun? I think there is so much opportunity in this game to earn money as well. And of course, this is not financial advice by any stretch of imagination, but in today's video, I'll answer the question and talk from my point of view on how you can earn the most money playing MFL. And I have had a pretty good track record. I have played for 4 consecutive seasons. I have close to 300% ROI, return on investment, although that's a lot thanks to you guys supporting the content here, of course. You have helped me in terms of knowledge and also in terms of using my referral link. And that is, of course, the #1 thing to do. If you are new to the game, you should definitely sign up using a refer a friend link. If you want to use mine, I will have mine first in the description, because as you can see here, you will receive a free card after purchasing packs for more than $25. And if you just purchase a club, which is essentially the game in itself, that will be covered. So therefore, it's just getting into the game. And before we go into everything, I want to just change my shirt, because this will be a long one. Grab some popcorn, grab a drink, and enjoy this video. I will be repping Stuttgart for this one, because I think my strategy on MFL is very similar to Stuttgart's strategy in real life football. They scout young talents and develop them into very good players, where they can later on sell them or use them. Me personally like the first bit the most, especially in MFL. Find those young talented players that can develop into one of the best players in the platform, and then when they are on that growth, you try to sell them when they are at their best, that you personally think that they will be in the career when it comes to their age, compared to their rating, compared to their current price. And this has also been my philosophy from day one on MFL. This has always been the method that has been my favorite, because I think there is so much potential and there is a very low downside. So therefore I will go through my examples of my purchases. Has it been worth it or not? Because I will of course put my money where my mouth is. So we will go through every single one, and then I will talk about how you can scout similar players. And as you can see here, and something you need to keep in mind, these first purchases were made 4 seasons ago, which means we need to divide the age number by, or minus the age number by 4. Which means Salcedo here was purchased as an 24 aged player. Duffy was purchased as an 18-year-old player. Just keep that in mind. But first of all, we can start with Salcedo. We purchased him, he was 24 years old at point of purchase. And we can go into him right here. I thought he had very high upside in terms of his stats. I think he was very underrated, had multiple positions in terms of his rating. If you go to progression, he was a 62 rated player by the looks of it. And he didn't develop too well for me. Like, he was a very underpriced player compared to what he has to offer, in my opinion. He had a pretty decent rating, and only $5 for a player like this, can play multiple positions. He didn't progress too well, but he progressed into a new scarcity, which is the uncommon scarcity. And if we go to last sales, we can see here that we made a pretty damn good profit. We purchased him for $5 and sold him for $12. And this wasn't a player that just boomed up in rating. It was just simply that he was an underpriced player. He was pretty young, 24 years old. He had some decent stats. As I said, he could play in numerous positions, and he had a decent rating and some pretty damn solid stats. And therefore we made that profit on him. This is for example, we can move over to Duffy. Some of these players we haven't sold yet, but this is a player that I bought at 18 years old. If you go to progression, I purchased him as an 62 rated 18-year-old, and this guy right here didn't have the best spike in terms of progression either, but he was very young and in my opinion very underpriced, although I purchased him as $11. And if we move over to last sales, we can see here we made a $3 profit. Of course that's not a huge profit margin, but something that we would definitely take. And moving further on, we have Lagarde, which is another player that was only 20 years old at point of purchase. In terms of his progression, nothing special. He moved up 2 ratings, and then if we move over to last sales, we made a $3 profit on him as well. When we move up, the purchase gets just better and better in my opinion. We purchased a 22-year-old striker, Randall Little. He has been a legend to the gallery. He hasn't had the best progression either. He moved from a 71 rated player to now a 73 rated player, but he has been the best player in my gallery, so this is just brilliant. I purchased him for a lot of money, $34, but in my opinion, he has already made a lot on that back in terms of good performances, and he's a player that will be in my gallery for a while, and if I would have sold him now, I think I would have made a small profit on him as well. Scrolling further up, now we are going into the really fun players, because Bodo Hins purchased him as a 22 aged player. And if we go to progression, he was 62 rated when we purchased him. He has now gotten up in 7 rating, which is just incredible. Bodo Hins, one of my best purchases, and just look at these stats, brilliant stats. And that was one of the reasons I purchased these players. Every single player was under 24 years old, and most of them close to under 20. And they had such a big upside, and Bodo Hins were one of those. Where I just compared the stats to what I could expect from him, and I thought this is way too good to be true. If I were to sell him now, we would have almost guaranteed doubled our profit, or even more than that. But for now, I'm very happy to bring him into and stay with him in the gallery. And as you can see here, we actually purchased the double as the last sale before that, but it still was very worth it, in my opinion at least. Florea is another player that I'm very happy to purchase, only $4 for him. In terms of the progression, he has gone up, I think it's 7 ratings as well. Just incredible, only $4. This is way too good to be true in terms of the return we will be getting from this guy if we sell him. And these are just small examples. Szymanski is another goalkeeper, which we purchased for 64, and I mean rating in terms of 64. He was aged then 24 years old as well in terms of his sales. We haven't sold him yet, but we will make a small profit on him as well. And these are the type of players. Moving further up, we have also different ones here. Kataoki is another player that we purchased. Some brilliant stats. We purchased him when he was 21 or 22 years old, and in terms of his progression, he has progressed a lot from a 67 rated player to a 72 rated player. We will make a huge profit on him if we sell him. We also got a pretty damn good price for him, which I'm very happy about, and he is still young and we still have time to develop him even more. The same goes for Viana, another brilliant signing in terms of his progression. The same, going from a 65 rated player to a 72 rated player, and this is like my favorite signing, probably $15. He is only 24 years old. We signed him as a 20 aged player, and like these examples, it just gives me a lot of excitement because it's our philosophy. That's the way we want to play MFL, and this is how it has been worked out. And one of the best things that you don't need specific players. Like all of these players are in different positions. There aren't any likelinesshood. The only likelinesshood of these players, or the similarities, that's a much better word, is the age. It's under 24 or under 23 years old. Also the rating is pretty low. And in terms of the price I'm paying, it's also pretty low, under $15. Like 95, there were one exception there, or 2 exceptions, but generally under $15. And the stats are pretty solid. When I talk about stats being pretty solid, I mean stats that can develop into good stats. This player right here, if he gets 5 or 6 plus defense, 6 or 5 plus dribbling, 6 and 5 plus pace, 6 and 5 plus passing, he is one of the best central defensive midfielders you can get for around, let's say, 73 to 74 rating, if he develops into that. It's the potential I'm looking at. I don't care if he has bad pace, if he can develop into becoming one of the best central defensive midfield positions out there. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the future, not the current state. So I'm never purchasing like finished players, and therefore I'm selling players that I develop personally. Montoya is a player, he is 27 years old, therefore I sold him, and I have developed him into a good rating, therefore I'm selling him. Holmgren, there is a lot of similarity there. I developed him into that player. I sold him, as you can see here, I progressed him from an uncommon player to a rare player, and then we sold him. The same goes for Ndungu. We got this guy right here. He was a 28-year-old player, some brilliant stats. We sold him because he is at his peak. And just look at these price points. This is for a 74 rated player, which is 27 years old. $44 damn. As you can see here with Viana, he's only 72 rated. I mean, he is 72 rated compared to that 74. If he goes up 1, 2 or 3 ratings, we could possibly have a 3x profit margin on this guy right here. The same with Ferguson, the same with Kataoke. There are so much possibilities doing it this way. And I have talked about how to progress your players the best. As you can see, I have sold a lot of players, but the one core thing for me, why you're probably wondering, why is all of these players sold? You say that you should develop your players into the new star players. There is one key difference for me, one key difference. You need to have a place for your players to develop into the new star players. If you don't have a place for them, it's no point of having them, because you know your players the best. In my opinion, you can purchase low-rated players and loan them out, I beg your pardon. But then you don't have control over the manager you are loaning the player out to. I like to have my players in my gallery. I like to follow the journey of my players. So therefore, when I now am probably getting promoted, I will build a team to progress my players the best. I will not have 50, 60, 70 players that I loan out to different clubs, because I don't know what they are doing with the players. I don't know if they will start. And of course you can have a clause in the contract where you say you need to pay me more if you don't start them regularly. But I generally think, for myself and for many MFL managers that doesn't have the biggest galleries like Nepenthes, Pranksy and McBride and etc., I don't think that's worth it, unless you are them, of course, and have time for that. Me personally would just focus on the players I already got in my gallery, which I can develop playing in my own competitions. So that's what I'm currently doing. What I would recommend you guys to do: find players that will fit your club, because if your players perform, they will progress better. I've made a whole video about progressions in itself. I will link that down in the description as well. But that's so underrated, finding those players that have that development potential. And one thing that is so important, I've also talked about that numerous times, a view player page to look at the observations. That is so important here on the observations. Ovidio is thriving in training, benefiting from the perfect environment for his progression. Why is this environment perfect? That's something that you need to ask yourself. I will answer that right now. Let's go to Randall Little here, view player page. And here it says, Randall would benefit from facing stronger opposition in matches. Randall Little is training well, but could advance slightly faster with stronger competition from better teammates. And this is a 73 rated player, keep that in mind. And here we have a 75 rated overall player, which this is a perfect environment for his progression. That's why I'm loaning out my star players, like him, Riano. He is now up there with MFC Python, which will most likely win the title or come top 3 at least. That's why in some of the occasions I think it's very, very good to loan out players. I think loaning out your best players could be very smart, but loaning out your worst players could be very risky, because they are getting older, and the chance of them being, like you being able to make that profit margin when they grow older is getting lower and lower compared to their age. Of course, they are growing and they are getting what is called retired sooner rather than later, of course. So therefore you need to find a time period with those low rated players which has that potential. I wouldn't loan out those players that has that potential. I would either send them to the development center, which I have done with Ushan for example, or try to develop them yourself, have teams for them. Like Nepenthes, he has like 5 or 6 teams. That's very smart, where you can develop players, you have control over the players, and then you can have different teams. For example, me personally now are going to be in the Stone League. First season I'm getting promoted. Therefore, I will have Veriano, I will have Peltier, I will have a lot of these guys that are key players that will fit perfect, and I will sell them most likely in the future. I will not wait for my players to get retired. I think that's a big mistake. But I think this is the perfect period to not sell for me, because I think this will be the perfect environment for growth in my gallery. And that's something that you need to look at yourself. And one thing that is very underrated is to go on the market. Find those underrated players and find your... you need to first of all find Find out your goal, find out your philosophy and where you want to be with MFL, because this video is about earning money. So if you want to earn the most money, first of all you need to find out the best way. I think the best way is to progress players, develop players and then sell them later on, 100%. But how to develop players? That's a much better question, because when you develop players you will earn money. Simple as that. If you develop good players, you will earn money by selling them later on, as Stuttgart, Brighton, all the top clubs in the world do. Except for Manchester United, which is my club. It's the opposite. They get worse by joining the club. So therefore you need to know your players, do your research and find out the opportunity within the players. Let's go for maximum age of 23 years old. And then you go through the players that you think is underpriced, that you think you can be able to develop. And it's just to scroll through here, try to go here on the price, go here on the positions, and build a strong squad in your division. If you are in the Spark League, have players 55 rated to 65 rated. In Ice League, have players close to 60 to 70. And further up, you will of course need better players. But be competitive and have a squad that can be like top 5 at least in your division. That's very important in my opinion. Have players that can be able to perform consistently, tough oppositions, but consistently performs well enough so they get that experience on their progression. That's what I would be personally doing, and that is what I'm currently doing. My only downside is that I'm like a little bit too good for my league. As you can see here right now, at least, I'm like, at the moment, I will probably jinx this, but I'm like 6 points clear. So next season, this will go for me as well. And if you are new, I would definitely recommend you to purchase players that is slightly above the level that they should be in, slightly above, so that you have a buffer. So if some of your players doesn't live up to your standards that you hoped for, you will be able to save that in because you spent that little extra money. So that's something that I would personally do. And of course, along the way as you develop your players, you will earn money in competitions. Of course, that's just brilliant. That's a bonus. When I talk about players that I've sold and players I've purchased and sold and talking about the return on investment, I'm not taking it into consideration all the MFL dollars I've earned along that journey. With Duffy, with Lagarde, with Little, with Hints, with Florea, with Schimmick, I'm not talking about the profit I've earned in competitions. So that's just a bonus for me. This strategy is just solely based on development, and the bonus is of course the prizes you will be winning in the competitions. So those are the two different things, and the different method is of course playing in the competitions. I need to be honest. This is my channel. I will be honest. I don't think this is the best method. I wouldn't focus too much on these leagues. If you play MFL for fun, focus a lot on this. It's so much fun getting promoted, and I play MFL most for fun, to be 100% honest. But I have found a strategy to play this for fun while earning money on it, so far at least, because I'm taking the financial viewpoint and mixing it in between with my squad. And so that's why I have a lot of high-rated players that I could be selling for a lot. And that's why I'm developing a team in now the Ice League that will get up to Stone League and hopefully up the divisions here. That's my vision, that's my plan. But ideally, I would have just had multiple clubs where I loan players out to, and then they can develop themselves there. That's of course, in some of the cases, a bad example, because as I said, it's very hard for you to know what the player you will, or the manager you will loan your players out will do with them. But in my personal viewpoint, I think that is also a very, very viable option to do if you just want to earn money on MFL. But I have mixed it with my squad, having my identity, while purchasing players, low-age players that I can develop into new players. Like, in theory, I could just purchase a lot of these players and just send to the development center, because I think that is also a very, very viable option, probably a better option in terms of just making money on the players, because I think there is so much opportunity in this development center. But of course, it's a part of the game playing in the competition, so therefore another thing you can do is to try to build a strong team, just get promoted and return your money back in terms of getting MFL dollars. And then when you have gotten your team high up, I would still sell my players before they retire, but then you can arguably sell your club and probably for a profit, because you know you purchase your club for, let's say, $70 to $80, and then if you can get it up to the Iron Division or the Bronze Division, if you are a good MFL manager, that is very possible, and then you could sell it for a $40 to $50 profit. I'm not 100% sure, and then you can do it over and over and over again. I think this is a long way to glory, and this is also a strategy that you can multiply with a lot of clubs, 5, 6, 7, 8 clubs, like Nepenthes does. But I think it's very, very hard to do it that way, because each season players is getting older, and specifically in the Ice Division, the prices here, there are so many participants compared to the prices. I don't think the price pool is worth it to waste so many years of each player. Let's say, for example, if I have a player which is very, very low rated, I can go in my gallery, because as you can see here, there are very, very few players in my gallery that is under 60 rated. The reason for that is that I think developing these guys right here is probably, in the numerous of locations, just a waste of time. Players under 50 rated is just, it takes so long to develop them, and playing them is just waste. You will lose so many matches having these players in your lineup, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of having these low rated players. I would much rather just sell them for $1 or $2, which could go into my Dapper account, which I then could use on a 60 or a 65 rated high potential player. That's my opinion, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of having so many clubs with low rated players, because as older as they get, the chance of them going up in price just gets less and less. And of course they need to have an incredible development for them to be worth more, because every single player under 60 rated or 55 rated, around that, is under $5 in 99% of locations, although in some examples there are of course 16-year-old players that is going for much more. But like, let's be real, in 90% of locations you will not make that much profit going that route. Of course there is possibilities there, don't get me wrong, but I think when players are so low rated, it's harder, and it takes a lot of time, and especially if you purchase a club for those players specifically, that's $80 at the end of the day that needs to get returned somehow, although you could just sell your club later on. But I think most of you know where I'm heading at. I personally think the best method is what I started the video off with, but I'm just letting you know that there are different opportunities there, and my method may not be the best, but so far I've had a lot of joy with it. And also the development center, wow, this is underrated. It's something that I will look at more in the future. But as I talked about in the progression video, I think knowing your players and finding a division where you are slightly above the average is just perfect. Because you will get so many good feedbacks, because you will get wins here and there. And you will have players in a good environment in matches and also in training. Therefore, I'm so excited for the next season, because I have so many players that I think will just be perfect for the Stone League. I think we will be top 10, top half of the table, or at least top 10, probably top 6 or top 7, and probably or hopefully further up as well. And this is something that I love about MFL, being able to strategize, and I think these players are way too good for the Ice League. So therefore, I will not sell any of these players. If I would have stayed in the Ice League, I would have probably sold some of these higher rated players, because I have developed Peltier into a beast. He was a 69 rated player, now he's a 75 rated player, up the scarcity as well. So yeah, just many ways to perform well on MFL right now. I think there are different strategies that I would use compared to other MFL managers. And I think right now there is such a big opportunity in the market in terms of getting young players that could develop. And as we have seen, since I've started playing NFL, the market has gone slightly upwards all the way, which is a good sign. Hopefully that can keep happening, especially with the new league, Spark League, where I think doing the strategies which Nepenthes has been doing now, with having 4 or 5 or even 6 clubs, is very viable and very good for those low rated players, like very low rated players, and to get them developed. So definitely a strategy that could be interesting. Leave it in the comments which strategies you currently using, and I will of course catch you next one. Bye bye and take care. Peace.